Hello, welcome to the Viewpoint. I am Mumudu. Today, in an extraordinary session of the National Assembly on Thursday, 28th of July, the government tabled a revised budget 2022, which contained, among other things, a proposal to increase civil service pay by 30%. Today, we are going to talk about some of the salient points, as it were, of that budget. Well, salient according to my guest. And we will also talk about political corruption generally. And here I will give you a clue to who my guest is today. During the debate in the National Assembly, one of the National Assembly members suggested that perhaps we were all corrupt. This particular gentleman, honorable man, got up and said he wasn't corrupt. We will talk a bit about political corruption. And finally, parliamentary oversight generally as well. I mean, do our National Assembly members have the right tools to perform their tasks? Here to help me answer those questions and more is the Honourable for Woolly East, the Honourable Member for Woolly East, Honourable Swaibu Ture of PDOIS. Welcome, sir, to the Viewpoint.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's appreciated.
Yes, you're welcome. Oh, what a day, that the whole day, my colleague there called it a sort of marathon session.
Yes.
you had.
Yes.
So reflect on the day and what were some of the high points, as it were, of the whole debate?
Yes, thank you very much. The day was marathon because the president has brought in a bill with a certificate of urgency. And any document that has that certificate of urgency must be treated equally on time so that it is not delayed because it's accepted that it is with urgency. So that's why we had to take the whole day, and it could have even taken us longer to complete that. And even if we don't finish, we have to come back the second day to be able to complete it. We will not adjourn until we complete that business. That's why it was marathon. It is in relation to...
And is that why it was called extraordinary? Just make a distinction for us there between ordinary session and extraordinary session.
Yeah, well, it's like the parliament meets quarterly, on a quarterly basis. So any other meeting different from that quarterly meeting, that ordinary meeting, then is called extraordinary.
And quarterly here would mean every 3 months.
Every 3 months, right. One meeting. Every 3 months, one meeting. Right. So before the next 3 months, if the executive intends to lay something which is very urgent to Parliament, then they would be able to come with that with a certificate of urgency. Or if the Parliament itself desires to meet because something is urgent, then they would call for that extraordinary meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now let's sink our teeth into the heart of the matter, really. Now with the revised budget 2022, what do you make of the minister? It was the Minister of Finance, Decatur, who tabled it. What did you make of his rationale for bringing a revised budget, as far as you were concerned? Credible, sound, plausible?
Yes, I think what has happened is that the appropriation budget, that is the one we've dealt with in January, was done by a different minister. And then it was done at a time when the situation was different from now, because that time there was nothing like Ukraine war, although the pandemic, the coronavirus thing was reduced, but it was on. So the situations are a bit different. So the minister felt that he needs to revise this budget if they are going to do what the government, newly elected government, wants to accomplish. And that is, one, to create 2 new ministries, and then also to increase salaries. Even though they've not attained their objective of increasing the salary to 50% as they desire, but they've managed to work through the figures, reduce here and there, be able to come together and then be able to come up with a figure of 30%, which is also accepted by development partners like the IMF.
So as far as you're concerned, the justification for revising it was a good one, sound, plausible, nice.
Yeah.
So we're going to the heart of the matter.
It's-
So now, where would you score the government high and where would you score them low? We would love to see sort of a general synopsis of your evaluation of the budget.
Yeah, my evaluation is I've said that this is, it's a recurring budget.
Yes.
The revising is a recurring budget revision. So it's non-recurring. It's non-recurring. Means that they are not making major changes in the budget. They are simply looking into within the figure that was approved by us in the early phase, and then within that adjust certain things and even reduce the amount that is supposed to be spent. They increase the amount that was supposed to be borrowed, etc., and also increase external borrowing, so that they'll be able to continue with the projects that were there. Also, they'll be able to continue borrowing to be able to meet the salaries, and even the additional 30% that they have put on salaries. They must borrow domestically to be able to meet that. So for me, I have not seen anything extremely negative about the affair, because this is not the first time. They could bring it in an appropriation budget, supplementary appropriation budget, or they could also bring it in a revised budget. That's why I was telling the minister that I will not be surprised if he should come back again for the second time to do another revision, because the Ukraine war is on, and we don't know when it is going to end. And we know that it is coming with a lot of repercussions, especially to developing countries. We know even the developed countries are suffering from the Ukraine war. Much more developing countries that are reliant on almost all imports. We are reliant on imports to be able to satisfy our ends. So everything that we do, my own area is that I was not comfortable when I see a government basing all its calculation on imports, importing and importing and importing. I was thinking that it is about time now that countries like Africa also begin to do some investment in the productive base, because we've come to a stage where we've learned that collecting taxes here and there, from small entrepreneurs, etc., it's not sufficient to actually take care of the expenditure needs of the government, of the people.
That is true,
So
but when we look at the current state of our government,
Yeah.
that sort of level of export that you want is just not there.
Yeah.
Perhaps as an intermediate or maybe longer term project,
Yeah.
we may try to see how we can do that.
Yeah.
But in the short term, imagine you're in power. What do you do now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No matter how your income is small, you should always be able to maneuver to be able to invest in the productive base. Investment can be done through many ways. There is no one way of investment. You can empower your citizens to invest in small-scale businesses, in small-scale agriculture, in small-scale industry, to be able to transform the products into finished products.
You don't think that sort of thing is happening right now?
Yeah.
Do you think that the government is doing anything
no,
like that
the
right
government
now?
is not involved in that. You can also go into partnerships with, reasonably larger companies to be able to do, get into agriculture, get into, industry, etc.
Are you talking about PPP here?
There is nothing wrong with
Is
PPP.
it something like that?
So they talk about it, but I have not seen it taking off.
But
I've not
recently
actually
we've seen, for instance, Q Group, how it worked with KMC, and then afterwards it's working with GTSC. This is just the beginning. There appears to have been a greater urgency, some vibrancy, if you like, within the GCCI to get other people to get in it.
Yeah,
get other private sector.
are they going into the productive base? They are going into the service sector.
Yes.
That is the service.
But they've also talked about
the
agriculture,
productive
haven't
base.
they?
Yeah.
They've talked about agriculture as well.
So there is dichotomy. If you want to do that PPP, you must deal with the landowner. You must deal with the farmer who owns the land. Because it's not good to take the land from the farmer and then leave him destitute, or allow him to come back and become your, you understand, to work on your field, and then you start giving him small amounts. So it's good to have that agreement with the farmer because he owns the land. Now you own your investment. So you invest, and then all of you will be able to benefit. And if the farmer wishes again, he or she can still work for you on the farm. Through that, production will be boosted. And then
is that different from corporations, a cooperative? Is that what you're talking
that's
about?
some kind of cooperative you can come. But I'm saying you have cooperatives, which are, for example, you can have many people in one cooperative group, collaborating with another industry or something. But usually what happens is that the land is owned by individuals. It's not owned by cooperatives. So you can have cooperatives, they can have communal land, but then if we really want to deal with the landowner, it's the individual that we should deal with. And I believe that if we take that type of strategy, we will soon be able to boost our agriculture and boost our production, and be able to get to the world market and also get our share.
Absolutely, but maybe you'll have me address this, because we do hear sometimes from certain commentators, if you like, sort of expressing skepticism over the efficiency of cooperatives. To me, it conjures up, it brings back to mind ideas like collectivization, even though without the forces, So the efficiency of it, there's a lot of talk.
Yeah.
Some people suspect that the talk is fueled more by our speculative expectations, much more than the evidence shows, the evidence-based outcomes. So what do you think about that?
I think what you are saying is correct, that the skepticism is the mindset. I think is from the history. If you talk to many people about cooperatives, they think that you are talking about communism and all these things. Those countries that have gone through those cooperatives have developed their agriculture through that. And if you go to the rural areas right now, I'm from Woolly East, we have cooperatives everywhere. And people are cooperating and putting their little resources together, and they are, having farms, and they are having milling machines, etc. So the people have already accepted the process of cooperatives. They know that cooperatives can actually help them to uplift their livelihood. So
then help
as far as the people are concerned, they have no...
Absolutely. But help me here. I think around Africa, you do hear stories like that cooperatives are doing this or doing that. People talk along those lines. Yeah. Yet when we look at the aggregate effect on national development, national income, it has not transferred. What is going on?
Yeah, what is going on is because the government has not given the necessary support to those cooperatives. If the government had given them the necessary support, you will be able to see their impact. But if we leave poor people, you are poor, I am poor, we have a cooperative. Before we actually have impact, it's going to take time. But if the state has a mechanism, an initiative to actually support these cooperatives by giving them, for example, you cannot give tractor to everybody. You cannot do that. Let me give an example. In Woolly I'm initiating a project on my own where I received this, gratuity of 700,000. So I'm investing that into a cooperative. It's called Woolly Development Initiative. So I'm having this reconditioned tractor with all its accessories, as well as the wagon, so that during the dry season, they'll be using the tractor to generate funds. During the rain season, they'll use it on the farm to work.
So this is a communal initiative.
Isn't
this the idea?
This is a cooperative that I initiated in my constituency, and I am now using my funds to put it there so that they can win, I can also win.
But it's a private organization, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You're privately organized.
Yeah.
But this is really what the key is, that really there's something that government can do, but again, a lot more will also depend on private individuals. How we come to invest, perhaps government be the facilitator.
Yeah.
So when you say the government should come in, to do what? How far can it go?
Well, I think 2 years or 3 years ago, we had the pandemic, and then they brought a bill to the National Assembly, and they said, first time they say we buy rice and give it to farmers all over the place, give it to poor people. And we did that. We approved that. And a lot of millions were actually used to buy, foodstuffs and distributed to the communities across the country. Now, if the government comes and say, now we want to boost production, but we want to do it through individuals or through cooperatives. And then we have this number of millions, and we want to put it to these private banks or whichever bank, and then the cooperatives can come and borrow from that bank, so that when they work, they'll come back and pay to the bank, so that it becomes like some kind of revolving fund. If that type of scheme is come, every year the government will put chip in little to add it to what they've originally invested. So through that, many people will be collecting it, and they'll be paying, and they'll be taking, and they'll be paying. So through that, you'll be able to have production at the grassroots improved, and you'll be able to also have small-scale industry underneath that will process those things. And through that, we'll be able to develop from the village, from the ward, from the district, from the region. Things will develop, and then through that, we'll be able to boost our exports, at least our food exports. And you can see a country like Ukraine, when a small country like Ukraine is in war, the whole world is crying, because Ukraine has specialized in producing wheat to feed, to export.
Absolutely, quite obviously.
So why can't we do that?
Absolutely, quite obviously, different socio-economic conditions and history and all of that, granted. But this idea about helping small industries come up on all of it, I've heard certain businessmen talking about, should government protect certain industries perhaps to help them grow? Would that be part of the strategy? We've heard certain business people talk like that, sounding similar ideas. Would you do similar thing?
Yeah. It's still the mindset. Like you talk about different environment, different situations. Every country is different from another country. If you want to, for example, they will tell you about protectionism is this and that and that. But you go to other countries like United States, they protect what is key to them, what is very important to them. They protect it. If you go to Europe, they protect their businesses. They support their business and they protect them. So they have this, what they call the Washington Consensus. They put everything, what is good for them, they plan that to make it a size fit for everybody. But the world does not run that way. We have very, very low economy. So if we want to move, we must start from the ground and go up. We cannot go by the same policies like those countries. If we want to privatize something in the United States, it will take you a very long period to do that. But the United States and the IMF is promoting the idea of privatization everywhere. But you go to the main countries, like the United States, all these countries, you want to privatize their railroads or these things. It may take you 10 years. It may take you 5 years before you can succeed in doing that. But they push us to privatize. So protection is...
But this is it here. We must have the balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
What should be in the hands of the state and what should be in the hands of the private. That
so
balance.
All you do is calculate your situation, know what is really, really going to impact on your people, and know what you can. For example, if you look at groundnut now, let me give an example of groundnut. The Gambian people are producing groundnut not because they want to, it's because of exports. But they want to produce groundnut because they need the food. They need groundnut. Groundnut has protein. Groundnut has all these other, vitamins and all these things. So people depend on groundnut to survive. You understand?
So should we invest more in subsistence farming?
Exactly.
What about the industrialization that is being talked about so that we could export?
That's what I'm saying.
What's the balance?
Since the Gambian people are bent on producing groundnut, and it's our traditional crop, we must not lose that sight. We should do everything to increase the production, but also to process it so that it becomes oil, it becomes butter, it becomes margarine butter, etc., etc. And then this, we consume it, but we also export. So when we export, that's going to give us more foreign exchange than actually just producing groundnut and then taking the shell groundnut outside. That will give us very little.
You think we can produce enough? Because right now, wasn't it half or more than half
the capacity
of what we consume we import, don't we?
We have the capacity to produce far more than what we consume. But for some reason, as I said, the support that the low-income farmer requires from, because people are producing on their individual basis. Few people are into cooperative startup, but vast majority are into their small plots, like 2 acre, 3 acre plots. That's what they use. So what do you do to support those people in terms of fertilizer, in terms of seeds, in terms of protecting their nuts from destruction? Because if you don't give them pesticides and all this, at the end of the day, if they want to keep it for just a short period, it gets spoiled. So you need that type of support.
All right.
We must know that this is our country, and we must plan for what is good for the producers instead of just concentrating on service. Service is good, but production too should be side by side with service.
Absolutely. I mean, that topic, that subject in itself can take a whole program.
Really.
So just finally, before we move on a bit, would a government, for instance, introduce what they call indigenization policies?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What the DOI is saying is that, for example, you have the various villages, over 3,000 villages in this country. And we've come to understand that for all this period, you go to those villages, the way you leave them 5 years, 10 years ago, if you go there today, you find them in the same situation. So you need to come up with a policy let them pay their whatever tax as it is now. If you go to the area councils, they all put into the area councils, and they say 60% should go back to them, you know. But then, and that is even lately done, but you will not see any impact. So what we are saying is that these villages, if they are close, they can even come together. If they are big, they can keep their tax. They can pay the tax, but keep it to themselves. And then the state will also put in something so that every year they will come up with a smaller project, which is good for them. And then, you know, that project will go. So through that, you will have some transformation in those villages. But as it is now, you go to a village 10 years ago, you go back there, you know, it's the same thing.
Yes, so there's no change.
So
well, when will these things begin, really? In the legislation. So there is no legislation to enable anybody to do something like that. Is that
the legislation, some kind of legislation is there, what they call it, I forgot the term they call decentralization. Is in the area council.
Is that a legislation or just a policy? Is there any legislation?
No, there is a legislation. There is the Local Government Act.
All right.
It's promoting decentralization. But like I said, it looks like it's a copy from somewhere where they copy, but the reality on the ground is not matching with what is in the book. So therefore, what is in the book is not being practiced. So what is not in the book, what was there originally, how they used to do things, is still what is there. You go to a village, and then you ask them, you are the Village Development Committee, VDC. Ask them, what is your role? Do you get anything from the area council? Do you get anything from the central government? They say, well, for the last 10 years, we have not received anything from the central government. For the last 10 years, we have not received anything from the area council. So they don't even know their role. So which means you have a law, but the people you made the law for do not even know that that law exists. You just put them into this thing and call them, you are the VDC and all this, but they don't even know their power. They don't know their role. They don't know how to raise funds, etc., etc. Because the VDCs they are very crucial in villages. When there is a disaster, like what has happened, it is the VDCs that should have got up. They should have been very prepared to ensure that they mobilize the villagers to be able to take care of the immediate emergency.
Point well taken in there, Honourable. Yeah. But that's it. The rest of the budget. What would you have done differently? I wonder. You've mentioned some areas,
well, this is
but generally,
this is a revised budget.
The revised budget. That's it. What would you have revised differently?
Yeah, this is a revised budget. If it is, you mean on the revised budget?
Yes.
That's the problem.
What I was the 30%. Imagine, for instance. Yeah. The 30%.
Number one. They said the reason why they stopped at 30% is because the IMF does not approve that. They calculated until to the extent that they think that they could improve. They could make a cut out at 50%. And then,
but this was promised when? Was it last year?
No, what was promised, before the according to the people, what was promised by the executive was 100%. I don't know where they hear it. I have not heard it, but they said that's what they have. But the minister is saying they have done their every effort within the budget. And they've even gone up to 50%. But when they met the IMF, by looking at the microeconomic, and all those things, you know what I'm talking about, they come to the conclusion that, well, it's not feasible. And therefore, the IMF and they also come to agree on 30%. The IMF is crucial here because we owe, the IMF, the donors. And IMF is here for them. So therefore, you cannot just discount all what they are saying. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that if you look at the budget, you still have the furniture intake, furniture, a lot of furniture. Every department, they say, is a program-based budget. And every department comes with a furniture. Last year, you had furniture. This year, too, you put in a figure for furniture. Next year, furniture. Another year, furniture. So
you don't want any furniture in the office?
I'm trying to say...
I know what you mean.
I'm trying to say, this studio, this furniture here has been here for how many years? So if, for example, do you change this furniture every year?
Nope.
No, you don't do that. So you don't do that. So therefore, which means that departments for offices should not come with furniture, should not be. But what is there is that they look at the last year budget, and they take the same budget lines, and last year budget we put 150. This year, what do I put there? Let's put 300 there. So that even if they reduce it, it will come back to.
So you think
150.
it is arbitrary? It is arbitrarily done like that. They didn't go into some detailed studies to come up with figures.
Exactly, exactly. That's what I'm saying. The people who are preparing the budget should know exactly what they are doing. If there is no need for furniture, I'm just giving furniture as an example.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So many things there. It could be transport. It could be fuel. It could be repairs, it could be maintenance, etc., etc.
So it costs money to run a government, isn't it?
Which means that money. You just allow the department to make your budget. It's like 2 months or 1 month to a budget session or to a budget bilateral. You tell these departments, make your budget quickly because time is coming. We don't want to miss the time.
Do you think that's
so
how
they
things
just
work?
Go and sit down.
Do you think that's how things work?
That's how it should not work, but that's how things are working. Because how things should work is that people engaged in budgeting should go to the regions, every region, and consult the people. And they have a mindset. They'll be able to know what actually the people need. Involve the MPs, involve the councillors, involve everybody. And through that process, they'll be able to come to know exactly what we should put in the budget. Instead of every year, the same budget line, what has transpired last year, you will see the same thing this year.
How do you know, Honorable, that that's how it works? I have to say this.
I start with the departments, we do bilateral. When they come to the National Assembly, we sit and we ask them. So, last year you asked for furniture, for example, and then that is 300,000. This year too, you are asking for furniture. They will tell you, yes, because, that other office, beside us, the furniture there is not good, or we have a new office that is not furniture, etc., that does not have furniture. Those type of excuses. But I don't have any assurance that what these people are telling me is correct because I have not gone to the office. But I'm saying if the budget bilateral is done earlier, then it will give opportunity to people playing oversight to be able to find out all these facts and be able to know exactly what should obtain in the budget. So through that, you'll be able to do the essentials in the budget, and you'll be able to save some money, which you will do what I was telling you, to help the small-scale farmer, the industrialists, etc., to be able to boost production. I do think through that, we'll be able to boost up our development.
So through your parliamentary oversight,
yes,
you get to see certain patterns in
yes,
the way they present
these
documents.
Same pattern.
So now I want us we'll move on to another subject matter here. Yeah. Finally, what outlook and upcoming challenges do you see?
Yeah, well, if it comes to the government in place, I think that they are focusing more on grandiose projects. We must be very careful about big projects. Big road, you can see this bridge, very grandiose, good. Very good. This is wonderful. You know, if anybody who sees it, you will not say this should not happen.
Is that Senegambia? This is Senegambia
I think this
Bridge.
is Senegambia Bridge.
Yes.
So this is a big bridge which is linking country to country. That's fine. But you must not lose sight of, like I told you, the productive base, because that's where the economy is growing. No matter if you can take loans and build, you know, this highway we are building is going to cost us something like 4 billion from the airport Johnson there to come to sitting corner. It will be $4 billion. So if you
because everything is in such a dilapidated state, we have to invest in infrastructure.
Yeah, but you know, you could maintain that road, maintenance it to some standard, and then build. Imagine 4 billion. You could build within Serakunda, you know, the other roads that should divert from the main highway. Look at all these people leaving Banjul every day, trying to get home. You'll spend 2 hours to be able to travel 25 kilometers.
But Honorable,
so you can create a lot of divergent roads that will ensure that people get home early, they get to work early.
Absolutely.
That will be more durable than making
Honorable,
we must be careful about that.
Yeah, but Honorable here, of course, yes, when we sit and think about some of these things, we'll say that, yes, why should government spend this? He could have just done A or B or C. But there I'm being speculative. When I talk to civil engineers, what should I do? I would love to think that one does a thorough investigation survey, then which would inform what policy I take, what I do. So maybe, yes, maybe one could have done A, B, C, and D, but what do we need to do? Have you done your studies for you to know that maybe we don't need to build a new one? This one, we can repair it in another form in which it will make it functional and work well. Do we know? We don't know.
For example, if you look at the Battle Hiding Highway, they are not talking about repairing. They are saying widening. But
isn't that foresighted?
In the process of widening, you are, it's like you are overhauling everything and creating something completely new.
But isn't that oversighted? I mean, foresighted in the sense that population is growing. There are more cars. You know, when you look in the next 15, 20 years.
No, that's what I'm saying. Instead of concentrating on one road, you already have that road built. It's not yet spoiled. You can create more roads that will go away from the highway.
But is it well built? Look at the bridge when it rains. We were thinking, so we will need to redo something, don't we?
We are talking about $4 billion. Huh? You know that the road from Bara to up to Farafenye is less than 1 billion. Huh? From Soma to come to Mandinaba is less than 1 billion. So what we are trying to say, what I'm trying to say is that if you build more of that, you know, crisscrossing everywhere, what we are talking about, this time, more transports are coming. That's what I'm envisaging. More transports coming, more mobility is coming. And, you know, you'll be able to create even some roads for these trucks, big trucks, because if these big trucks go on some certain roads, they dilapidate them. So you can think about all that. I'm just...
Absolutely, there are many mechanisms. Absolutely, there are many possible.
So I would have, as a government, I would have been concentrated. I'm just saying...
Absolutely.
I'm not saying this should not be done.
Okay.
I'm just saying with foresight, we should be thinking of doing that type of thing rather than concentrating on big things, you know, which will, you know, take a lot of money from us. And we are, you know, those loans are to be paid. We must pay them. Now it's now 80-something% to the GDP, our loan. So we must be very careful how we take loans.
Yeah, absolutely.
We must be able to reduce them,
Yes, so I asked you about your outlook. This was some of the threats you've given me. But any chink in the armor, any sort of positive light?
Yeah, I think finally I want to say that, you know, if we the National Assembly has an oversight role. And it's the main oversight body in the country. So therefore, it must be taken seriously. And you need to fast track certain things by helping, especially the new entrants to the National Assembly, as to how they should do their oversight role. You were thinking about what deficits are there. I think in terms of doing our oversight role, we have deficits. We're trying to improve on those things.
But Honorable,
yeah.
we'll come to the parliamentary oversight.
Okay.
First, there's something that I want us to deal with. I think it should come before the parliamentary oversight.
Yeah.
During the, the debate on the revised budget, one of the National Assembly members suggested that
we are all corrupt. I am not corrupt.
Very, very interesting. When he said, no, I'm not corrupt. I want us here to explore a bit this thing called corruption, political corruption.
Yeah.
How do you see it? Do you see political corruption? We tend to think that it is all pervasive. All institutions are. It doesn't matter what government department, if you go for any service, somehow either you know somebody there or you pay somebody, otherwise you'll be back and forth for God knows how long. How do you see that?
The way I see it is that corruption is rampant, whether we like it or not, whether we want to hear it or not, it's rampant. And it has multifaceted, ways. I am part of the network. They call it Africa Parliamentary Network Against Corruption, APNAC. I'm also a member of the Global Network Against Corruption. And when I go to these conferences, I come to understand that Africa is losing billions of dollars through corruption. Some countries, $5 billion a year, what they are losing. Especially high-income countries like Nigeria. Corruption is pandemic. So a small country like the Gambia, the figure we could talk about, even if we talk about $1 billion, compared to our income, compared to our economy, that could really take us to another level. And that's why I think it is a good foresight that initiative that we build this anti-corruption institution, that the Anti-Corruption Commission. We believe that if that is properly constituted and they're doing their work, they'll be able to reduce this culture.
This is interesting. That's it. Before we get to your own personal incorruptibility, let's talk about perhaps a bit more on why do you think that is so? The idea that in Africa corruption is so rampant beyond or more than any other region. To my mind, I look back. How can I explain naturalistically using historical concepts? Or is there metaphysically something wrong with me as an African? So I'm trying to understand this thing. How do you explain it? How do you explain it?
Yeah, I believe that it's not any of that. I think what has happened is that we have not succeeded in creating the necessary institutions, the strong institutions that will do all this work that is required. If the institutions are in place, it will be very difficult. You cannot stop corruption, but it will be very difficult. Even in Europe, all the other countries, there is corruption, but their institutions are there. And that's why I'm talking about the Anti-Corruption Commission. You need to have institutions. And those institutions, you need to not just build them for the sake of building them. You must empower them so that they'll be able to do their job. Empowering them is that they must be incorruptible themselves. You understand? And that is the empowering. That means that you have to give them sufficient, their livelihood, sufficient income, so that they will begin to take their work. And they need the training. They need the principal training to be able to reject, offers, so that they'll be able to, pin down on whoever comes before them. If that happens, and then we began to name people and shame people before them, and that continues, that culture will develop, and eventually people will begin to reduce the activities that they are doing.
Fascinating one there, because whilst you are talking there, another question came in, perhaps slightly philosophical. Do you think that institutions shape people? It seems that's really what you're telling me here.
Yeah,
isn't it?
But
yet people constitute institutions. People shape institutions.
Yeah.
It's almost like we are in a chicken and egg.
Yeah, I know. I want to emphasize that the thing that people always talk about, that everybody is corrupt, everybody is bad, I don't think that is correct, because if the society, if everybody is rotting in the society, that society cannot grow. That society will die. That society will not progress in any way. But the reason why society is still moving, people are still managing, is because there are some good people in society. There are some incorruptible people in society. There are some people who are concerned about the welfare of the ordinary person. Otherwise, our society would die. So I think every institution that we build, there must be a provision in their laws, in their manner of doing things, to educate the people, to enlighten the people. Must be there, and I believe it is there, and it must be taken seriously. You know, every institution that we build, you're this institution. What are you doing? You are educating the people. If the National Assembly is educating the people, the executive is educating the people, the civil society is educating the people, everybody is in their core mandate, it is there to educate the people. The people will be enlightened and educated. Through that, the culture will change. And anything you do, you can see that with the social media now, every little corruption thing, you see the ports, what happened there. You know, it's young people. These are young people who wrote the petition and say, we want the Gambia Ports Authority to share their preliminary report with the general public. And that's what they brought before. It's as simple as that, but it is very significant. Because by so doing, every institution will say, hey, no, now, when we have to be careful. Now, you know, they are taking people to the petition committee at the National Assembly. So eventually, you know, you see that everybody will begin to be careful as to what they do. That's how you control the exercise of people in institutions. Absolutely.
But I'm sure you've also seen the other part, some of our social norms. I can imagine Honorable Swai Ture coming into the office. He's here for a service. I immediately jump. Honorable, come here. Maybe there's a queue.
Yeah.
Very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Honorable, come here. I take you in, give you a service.
Yeah.
You go. What would I call that?
Yeah.
And that sort of thing happens all the time.
Yeah.
You mean you've never benefited from something like that, talking about personal incorruptibility?
Well, I may have, because like you say, it's a culture, but you know, I'm always aware. When I go to an institution, you know, I tell you, I go to banks. And when I go to bank, some people say, you know, Honorable, come here. I said, no, you know, the queue is here. It's okay. You know, I will stand at the queue. Every time you go to bank, you find me there. I'm in a queue. Even if I am sitting down, know that I know my position in the queue. And when the time comes, I'll go there. I will not go in front of the queue. You know, and when you find people, they are queuing to have something, don't go in front. I see people doing all that. And that is how things happen. If you are a newly, you know, it's like you are newly elected president, and you are not au fait with the corruption and all this, and you come and they give you, you know, your paycheck, you know, and say, well, you know, sign this. This is your, you understand? This is your salary, and it is, you know, 180,000 or 250,000, and then you know, you sign. Yeah. You understand? And then the next month also you sign. Then the people who are bringing that to you, they say, okay, he's also accepting what we are doing. And then the allowance too, you sign. And they'll say, okay, this president, this is how we can function with this president. Therefore, they keep on doing those things.
See how structural, it's almost structural, isn't it?
Yeah, so they also adjust. So they know that when they also take, you will not be able to say anything because they've already given to you and you have already filled your stomach. So you'll not be able to query when somebody is also feeling. So you must always be conscious. When they advance those type of things to you, you move quickly and say, well, you know, this particular one, no. I tell you, when I was in South Africa and I was sitting and they said, these are Gambian parliamentarians. They called me aside and there was an election to select the president of the Pan-African Parliament. And then all these people vying for the position have their, you know, people following them with their bags and they have their envelopes.
Brown envelopes.
And this guy comes and say, you know, are you Honorable Ture? I said, yes. He said, well, you know, this particular person says, you know, let me give you this envelope. It's the African tradition, the colonel. I said, no, don't give me any colonel. Take it back to him. You know, and when I see him, I'm going to actually tell him what he has done. that is against my ethics. So it is that, out of that you are building yourself and you are also helping other people to know that. And when I met him, he said, definitely, I don't know who did that, but, I know he is the one who sent that person. But then he reflected and said, well, it's not everybody that will take the envelope. So we must be careful as to how we give. Then they become careful. And they know that being a parliamentarian, I'm there, and you are now my president, speaker of that parliament. You know that I know that you've already offered an envelope. I will not take you to be a very serious authority in front of me.
This is fascinating,
yeah.
Honorable.
Yeah.
I don't like sounding like a cynic. It's never healthy for one to be a cynic, but it seems as if your voice is really a whistle in the wind.
Yeah.
when we look around what's happening.
Yeah.
But still, as I said earlier, finally to the parliamentary oversight.
Yeah.
We've got this experience of how these things do work.
Yeah.
Then perhaps that knowledge will help you in your oversight function in the National Assembly.
Yeah.
Do you think that when it comes to the legal framework, you've got the right tools for your tasks?
Yes, I think to a greater extent, I can say yes, although there are rooms for improvement. What I see as some difficulty in our work is, for example, look at this bridge. If you take me to this bridge and say, observe this bridge, whether it is, we've spent, I don't know, for example, they say 2 billion. That's what we spend on this bridge. Go and play your oversight role now. It's finished. If I go, I look at this magnificent structure, I say, it's fantastic, and people are crossing, I say, it's fine. But I wouldn't know the quality of this bridge. I wouldn't know whether, the specifications that were mentioned, whether they are put there or they are not put there.
But wouldn't the documents be there? I would have thought that perhaps
even
the
if
consultants and everything, but you don't trust any of the documents. Is that it?
No.
Is it a
What
lack
I'm
of
saying
trust?
is that if the documents say, for example, this particular pillar needs to have this amount of rods, an amount of, how do you call it? Other materials,
whatever,
cement,
exactly, whatever,
sand,
yes.
The
and so specifications
and the
of
quantity and
absolutely,
all that.
yeah.
If you take me there right now and say, look at it, I will not be able to know that.
But when they're building it, isn't there a body that would confirm that this building conforms, as it were, to the terms of agreement?
What I'm trying to say is that as they start building this structure, the parliament needs to have an expert, engineers, for example, that will, even if the parliamentarians don't go, but those engineers will be going once in a while to go and look at what the work that these people are doing, and vis-a-vis what is agreed on paper. You understand?
Yes.
To be able to inform the parliament. The parliament cannot depend on another body to confirm what they are doing. You understand what I'm trying to say?
But why not? I mean, why can't you call witnesses? Apparently, you can call witnesses, experts in this area, and then perhaps talk to them.
No, I'm trying to say that is already when the work is done.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say proper oversight should start from when the construction starts up to the end of the construction. If that happens, we will confirm that the work has been done the right way. You understand what I'm trying to say?
I know, but that will cost money. If you want your own experts, that's a lot of money.
But that's what Parliament requires. If you go to other parliaments, they have experts. They have engineers that go with. Every time Parliament wants to go, they go with engineers. We have our, what they call, we have our own, subject matter specialists. But their expertise is not to this level, what I'm trying to explain to you. Mm-hmm. But they have some idea. They work with us all the time. They have some idea, but they will not go to, confirm, a mighty project like this. So what I'm saying, if you, for example, when they start this project, you have, at least even if you go once, twice, they'll be able to go and confirm for you what is happening there, to be able to, assure you that actually what you have approved is what is being done there. I'm just trying to tell you
Yes.
that type of thing.
Exactly.
So that can be improved.
Improve.
That
Okay,
can improve.
granted.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, I have to say this, maybe slightly provocative. We're talking about rampant corruption. How many times have we heard that? And where have we heard that before?
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
but Parliament, you're supposed to be this oversight body.
Yeah.
So if corruption is still rampant, do I blame you at least partially that you're not doing your job?
Yes, you can, partially. We are an oversight body. But what is happening is that in each institution, you have internal audits, and you have a national audit, and you have internal audits. And you have, in fact, even within the institutions, they have oversight. You have people there who are, playing
audits,
oversight.
their own audit
Doing those sort of things. Parliament is just doing the general oversight. But what I'm trying to say is that if that, it should not be just for the sake of it. It should be a serious matter when Parliament is doing these things. It should be serious. It costs money. You mentioned money. It will of course cost money, but that is the fact about the matter. But a corruption like, for example, at the ports, that is done before Parliament knew anything about it. You understand?
Was it established that there was a corruption at the ports, or was it an allegation that there was corruption?
I'm using the ordinary language. The ordinary language is that there is. I'm saying in the grapevine there was this
they've alleged all sorts
about corruption at the ports,
and they sent a petition. There was a petition sent to the.
But I'm saying that they've set up a preliminary team to investigate that, and they've come up with some findings, very serious findings, to say that the port is missing to collect a certain amount of money, up to 25 million. That's the preliminary this thing. And the police also have done their this thing, and they've ordered the ports to, employ the NAO to do their...
That's the National Audit Office.
National Audit Office. To do a massive auditing of their books and activities, and so, which is presently taking place. So when this petition comes, now we are playing our role there, the public petitions committee. It came before us, and then we went through it, and then we called the necessary authorities and discussed with them. And then we finally wrote to them and said, well, you need to, share this with the general public, even though it's preliminary, but it's not conclusive. It is in the report that it is not conclusive and it's preliminary. Everybody will understand it that way. Let's not assume that the ordinary person will not understand what is inconclusive, what is preliminary. So share it with the public. When the major one comes, final findings, share it with the public. That is transparency. And one key instrument that fights against corruption in any society is transparency. Once there is transparency improved, corruption will also improve.
That's it. Yeah. So towards the end now, yes, Parliament, our main oversight body and all the rest of it. But when you think about it in broad terms, what would you say are some of the limitations of the Parliament in carrying out its oversight function?
Yeah, the limitations are, one is the parliamentarians themselves. The society is asked to select parliamentarians. And they select whoever they want. Whether the person is qualified or is quality or not quality, this is the person that we want. So that is one limitation. You may have some parliamentarians that, even if you train them, they will never be qualified in their work because their educational level has not reached that. That is one deficit. The other thing is that for Parliament to do their job, they need resources. And, this is we all know our economy. Every time we look at a budget, we said, well, this is what should come to Parliament. But anytime we say this is what should come to Parliament, we become guilty because we feel that agriculture is receiving 300 and something million. Then Parliament also is consuming 300 and something million. And that is the productive base. everybody depends on agriculture to survive. So that should not be equal. So we would cut the what should come to the National Assembly and say, let's push it to agriculture, let's push it to industry, let's push it to another service, etc. So that is making Parliament to be stagnant.
Yes.
And material conditions, like I'm telling you, the materials that require, the experts that you all these people, you have to pay them well for them to do their job. If you don't have the resources, you'll not be able to. So these are some of the constraints that Parliament has, but we are trying to overcome it annually. We will try to chip in something every year. We chip in something so that eventually we'll be able to get somewhere.
Thank you very much. I mean, public service. I mean, the art of the compromise, isn't it? Really, and it costs money. Thank you very much, Honourable Suwaibu Toure, for that fantastic conversation there. The National Assembly member for Woolly East. Thank you for
thank you very
joining
much.
us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you.
And thank you very much, viewers, for joining us on the Viewpoint. Until next time, I'm Mamadou Mbodj. Goodbye.
Thank you.